The tables have turned, and there's now a major hearing on Thursday involving Trump's handpicked prosecutor, Lindsey Halligan from the Eastern District of Virginia. She will be the subject of this hearing. The prosecutor in some ways becomes the prosecuted, not literally, but on this issue of her potential unlawful appointment under the Appointments Clause. You see, the Appointments Clause says that while the President of the United States appoints certain high officer type positions, the Senate has to then confirm. There's then a statute that goes along with the Appointments Clause that says that there is one specific instance where for a limited period of time, a president's able to appoint on an interim basis certain positions like an interim United States attorney. But the president only has one shot at that. It has a time limit. And after a certain period of time expires, if the federal judges in that specific district don't extend the term or agree to have that person continue on as the United States attorney, then the president has to pick someone who gets confirmed, or they're no longer an interim United States attorney. And that person can function in other capacities, but you can't just declare someone an interim United States attorney. So Trump declared, and the DOJ declared, that Lindsey Halligan would be this interim United States attorney. They had her go into the grand jury room to secure indictments against James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. And it seems at this point that she wasn't really the interim United States attorney, and there was nobody else in the room with her. She's signed as the interim United States attorney. It would be like, I don't know, taking the SAT exams, and if you take an exam like that and putting somebody else's name on it, and then it's like, well, that's me. They're like, no, you didn't put your name on the exam. It's not valid. We're not counting it. And then the statute of limitations, at least against Comey, expired. So the question right now that's going to be raised on Thursday is whether or not Lindsey Halligan should be disqualified. Now, there's all these other issues circling around this prosecution that seems to be tainted by a lot of unethical behavior, by a lot of potentially, criminal behavior. It's unclear what the heck's taking place. But their behavior that violates state bar codes, again, unclear, but this could be the case in my opinion. And so one of the things we're learning, for example, Wall Street Journal reported regarding, say, the Letitia James investigation, Fannie Mae's Ethics and Investigation Group received internal complaints alleging senior officials had improperly directed staff to access mortgage documents of Letitia James and others on the instruction of the head of the Fair Housing Agency, Bill Pulte. That group elevated the probe about the James documents to the more senior Office of Inspector General for the FHFA, it's the Fair Housing Administration, which oversees Fannie. The FHFA's acting Inspector General, Joe Allen, who sent the internal investigation to the prosecutors, was then asked to step down from his role shortly after. About a dozen members of the Ethics and Internal Investigations Unit of Fannie were recently fired. So all of that now is going to be subject of discovery that New York Attorney General Letitia James either has or will have, especially as it relates to her claim of vindictive prosecution, which is a separate motion than the motion to disqualify, which is set to be heard on Thursday. That will be heard, I think, the following week, this vindictive prosecution motion. Now, separately, this watchdog group called Campaign for Accountability is urging an investigation by the State Bar of Virginia and Florida into the behavior of Lindsey Halligan, who they claim that she brought these charges against New York Attorney General Letitia James and James Comey without probable cause. They filed a 17-page complaint against her, and they contend that she put her political interests above her ethical duties, and her active participation in this course of action is an abuse of her governmental authority and is prejudicial to the administration of justice, adversely reflecting on her fitness as a lawyer. So the hearing on Thursdays before Judge Curry, who got assigned this matter from the separate judges hearing Comey and James. Those cases got consolidated on the issue of disqualification because disqualification would apply in both cases because Halligan was the only person in the grand jury room for both. And then we have to deal with all of these other issues. And then if, and I think when, the criminal cases eventually will get dismissed against Comey and James for a variety of reasons. The first one may be disqualifications, the other vindictive prosecution, the other, and then there's a lot of other avenues to go. Lindsey Halligan is now going to be greeted with these state bar complaints. And let's be clear, and let's bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, the Talking Feds podcast. In many ways right now, if this case gets dismissed by the judge, not only is it a loss, but then Halligan likely has a high degree of probability of her bar license having something happen to it. So now her entire legal career, boom, like that, is on the line in these hearings. It's not just will these cases get dismissed or not get dismissed. It's if they get dismissed, the reason that they're going to get dismissed likely has a lot to do with her unethical behavior. And so then we move on to proceedings against her. We said this was going to happen, but she wanted to do it for Donald. Harry, break it all down.
Man, you are so right. And everywhere she turns, she's got exposure. And it does seem to be listing number 750 in the compendium of whatever Trump touches dies. So yeah, let's just start with, as you say, the motion's coming up on Thursday. She goes in the grand jury all by herself. Her signature on the bottom, and might as well say Mickey Mouse. She has got no, or that's the claim there. She's got no official status, so it's a non-indictment, even though it was returned. And by the way, also that Judge Curry, as part of determining if there is, has ordered up the department first tried to stonewall, but I believe they've now turned over the transcripts from the grand jury. They first tried to give everybody but Lindsey Halligan. So we may well see, it'll be closed at first, but we may well see some flagrant misbehavior to add to the list of potential ethical problems within the grand jury. She goes in, she doesn't know which way is up. And she's determined to bring Donald the scalps of Comey and James. Who knows what she might have said. Okay, so but does the case get dismissed? You made an important distinction here. Comey, they rushed to do it on the last day or two before the statute of limitation runs, and he's asked as a remedy in his motion to dismiss the whole case with prejudice. James has not. James has just said, dump this indictment, not with prejudice, although has asked for certain sanctions against Halligan. Okay, let's go. Well, there's you've mentioned two other things, and they're both pretty serious. The one at Fannie Mae it's not Halligan in the crosshairs, and maybe this Bill Pulte character who's been really up there, even among the Trump loyalists and genuflectors for doing anything and saying anything. He went at the allegation, and you have whistleblowers who are supposed to be protected within Fannie Mae came forward and said, wait a second, we're not supposed to give out mortgage information. And somehow this command came from on high from him, and we were just giving it up. I'm making a whistleblower complaint, which you're supposed to do when there's that kind of misconduct. And people started looking into it, as is their duty in the Office of Inspector General. They've all been fired. The people looking into it, I've just been fired. Boom. It's like, we talked a little bit about the pardons the other day. It's just when at the last kind of strategy is just wipe it all out, pretend it didn't happen, and just get rid of the evidence. It's like, the perfect crime with gloves and cleaning up the crime scene. Then finally, this stuff about the state bar. Look, state bar, you know this, Ben, they incorporate the ABA canons with a little bit of adjusting and fine tuning. But the very thing that's been alleged to happen here absolutely is a violation, and a serious one, under any state law, maybe not Louisiana, which is always an outlier. I don't even know. But you cannot bring a case. It's a violation of the Due Process Clause. We know that. But it's a violation of any ethical. There are special canons that relate to prosecutors. And if you bring a case that you know there's not solid evidence for or isn't a crime, that's got potential serious consequences for your license, just as you say. And bar complaints have already been filed against her. And, you know, she's come out of the grand jury room, you know, parading her scalps for Donald in cases that very possibly she knows. And I think even in the state bar thing, she should know. You know, this is just she's just a you know, a warrior for him, bringing cases that don't satisfy the minimum of due process requirements for any prosecutor who has a state license. So that's where things could be going for her. And as you say, if things are dismissed, it'll give sort of headwind to that kind of motion. But what would we think, right? This you've pointed out, insurance lawyer is what we call her, really. Trump saw her at, I think, a beauty contest, said, come be my insurance lawyer. And then when the U.S. attorney, Trump's nominee for the Eastern District of Virginia, stood up and said, I can't do this. I've been a 15-year U.S. attorney. This violates my pledge. I can't bring this case. He was fired, and let's bring Lindsey in to do whatever Donald needs. That's flagrantly unethical behavior under state bars, as well as unconstitutional under the Due Process Clause. So, man, oh man, she could be in hot water before long.
Harry, final question for you. In terms of the discovery that New York Attorney General Letitia James will get, and maybe has already gotten, the discovery that James Comey will get, when these prosecutors have put memos in the file about why they don't believe there's probable cause, and then that gets kind of leaked out to the press, or in the case of Attorney General Letitia James, knowing all of this, all of these documents exist at Bill Pulte's Fair Housing Administration, saying we've illegally targeted her, we're going after her unlawfully, we're violating ethics. Like, you know, there's going to be a mountain of stuff like that. Is all of that going to be subject to discovery in these cases? And do they have, at this stage, it's under a protective order usually, right, until these cases, you know, go to trial, at least for now, right? There's like some protective order, meaning that this is why these documents aren't out there in the public yet. But like, what are they getting in terms of?
Yeah, no, you bet. So Judge Curry, first of all, as you suggest, he's already ordered them, but it's grand jury material. Keep it under wraps. Then there's all kinds of other stuff. Comey brought this up when they brought out their motion supposedly on selective prosecution and just dirtied them up with all these conversations with Dan Richman. Well, guess what? It's part of a prosecutor's obligation to turn over any statement they have, and they got this a year ago from Richmond, that the defendant has made. But far more important, a due process, real basic cornerstone, and one that if you violate, really, and we've seen this happen, this is how prosecutors get disbarred. It's Brady material. So the things you've described, Ben, and you obviously, I know you know this well, but anything that a prosecutor has that would tend to exculpate defendant, it's an absolute. This is something even these guys would never. Well, would be very foolish to try to mess around with. This is something that courts will, in a heartbeat, dismiss cases for and refer prosecutors to the bar. So, you know, distinguishing between, there's a lot of stuff out there, but anything that actually, for example, tends to show there's statements in there, we don't think he's guilty, or statements in there that say, we don't care if he's guilty, we want to prosecute because Trump says. That's Brady material. And I don't think the Brady deadline has passed yet in these cases, but when it does, man, oh man, they better pony that up with no kind of nonsense, or that'll be both curtains, both for the case and serious hammer coming down on
the moment the former interim the time when a former United States interim U.S. attorney says we've evaluated it, there is no case here, and that exists in the file, and then somebody replaces that person and goes, I'm filing this case. At that point, the poison pill's in there. Like, no matter how you want to view it, the case is over. Like, you don't bring that for this precise point, is that there's now a document from the top one. The top dog's going to say, no case here. This should not be brought. We've analyzed it. And they're going to get that document, and Halligan's going to say, oh, well, I thought I would just do this. And they're going to be like, well, why didn't you go over these facts with the FBI agent in the grand jury room? You didn't think that was, well, I had my own approach to it. So this is why, going back to where we started, Halligan's in hot water.
And who knows this better than anyone about that document? Pat Fitzgerald, former U.S. attorney, former independent counsel. He knows it's out there. He's going to get it and use it to maximum advantage for Comey.
Everybody, make sure you subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel for precisely this purpose. This is the analysis you need. Go to the Talking Feds YouTube channel, the Talking Feds podcast, and the Talking Feds Substack. Thanks, Harry.
Hey, thanks, Ben.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.